in the city of Patterson, we get a lot of state aid also. And I will tell you the needs of our residents, similar to Newark, are tremendous, and they have different needs than any other student. Before we get to this hearing where we're going to start pitting some of the urban districts and suburban districts, because targeting one specific district is like a dog whistle, right? I wish the Republicans from the other side, across the aisle, spoke highly like this when Governor Christie reduced state aid to these urban districts by 40, 50%. We're still recovering. Our districts are still recovering from those 8 years of being underfunded. I wish we had that 3% cap. I wish we had that 3% cap. And suburban districts got hit hard, and schools are still recovering from that. Still recovering from that. They're shutting down schools in the city of Patterson. They're shutting down schools in the city of Newark, right? And I just don't want this to start going where the needs of certain kids in urban areas that have high needs, ELL learners, right? They're coming here without any English, and we have to educate them, right? But I know for specifically, and I could say with Newark, Patterson, the Trentons, the Camdens that were named, we got crushed during 8 years of being underfunded, well over the 3% that school districts got. And I'm pulling up articles. Some of the state aid figures were 40, 50%, and some suburban districts lost 100%. They're still hurting and recovering from that. So I know for a fact the city of Patterson was crushed in those 8 years, that they're finally getting their head over water. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And in those 8 years, I was only here during the last one, there was...
But if we're going
there was no supplemental. There was no supplemental money.
Madam Chair, if I may, during those 8 years, those budgets under Governor Christie were passed by a Democratic majority legislature. Just so we're clear on who actually passed those budgets. And I will say this, we could talk about funding formula and all this other stuff. I don't believe for a second that Assemblyman Scharfenberger was going down any road of a dog whistle. What he was saying, I believe, to speak for him for a second, is you want $1 billion? What are you producing with it? Take $2 billion, take $5 billion, take $10 billion, take whatever the hell you want. But we should all be offended by the fact that these kids are not graduating and are not reading. My point is that, when you look at these graduation results, right?
Let's look at them.
But the point is, nobody is saying that, Assemblyman Scharfenberger was not saying, I believe, that $1.5 billion, I don't think anybody can say overall it's being spent well. Perhaps we need to look at how we're spending it.
But
to get better results, to maximize results.
When you're talking about graduation rates, we have some of better graduation rates than some of the other suburban areas. We're at 86% graduation rate.
Okay.
We have more district data shows graduating reaching approximately 90%, the highest level in decades.
But yet we constantly hear about
reading proficiency. But you're talking about, so there's two things. Assemblyman Scharfenberger brought up some excellent points about the formula. Absolutely. Because the formula is looking at the value of the home, not necessarily the value of what the person inside the home is starting to make or has made or has improved or not. Two different things, right? That could affect your form. My parents' value of their home is much higher than what they bought. They're not making much money. They're both retired. They're on fixed
We've all said that, right?
Right? So there's two things. But what I think is unfair is that we're pinning districts against each other. We should be talking about what we can do to fix this moving forward. Because that is not, because you can talk about whatever you want to look at. You could talk $1 billion, $2 billion. You know, as Assemblyman Barlas, some of my kids walk into with more issues than you can ever fathom.
I don't disagree with that. And
that the outcomes that we're seeing,
what I'm saying
finally, because I guess we're throwing money at them, is finally it's showing improvement because we've been able to do things and programming that are able to show. I don't understand why we're having this conversation. Newark, when we were getting cut, Newark was ever like, oh, well, let me look at this budget. How come you guys are, come on, that's ridiculous.
We want every school district to have adequate funding, whatever it takes to provide an adequate education. That's not even the problem here. We just want to make sure any money that's spent, any funding that the state gives to these districts, wherever it is, it could be Newark, it could be Cape May, it doesn't matter. We just want to make sure that we're getting the bang for our buck that we're expecting. And we want to see some results and we want to see some outcomes as a result of this funding. And when you have some school districts that are struggling the way it is, the way they are, and others who seem to be funded more so over the last few years, getting increases, even though they have population decreases, which is the reason urban districts, oh, well, you had a drop in enrollment, so we have to cut your funding. We just want to make sure that money is being spent adequately and wisely, and we want to see the outcomes that prove that. That's all it was. Has nothing to do with Newark per se or this one per se, just those kind of expenditures. We expect certain outcomes. And there are grades where there are not one student performing up to grade level in some of these districts. That's a fact. So we want those kids to perform up to grade level. We want improvement. We want all of this stuff. But we don't want money just given to districts with no accountability. And I don't think we have enough of that. So I just wanted to make that clear.
So, Assemblyman, there's some points that you're making that are correct, but again, this goes based on to what your outcomes are perceived to be and what Newark outcomes are and what they've made improvements on. Maybe it's not up to everybody's standard, but they are unbelievable improvements, whether you want to agree to it or not.
What would be the metric to measure progress and measure accountability? What would be that?
Yeah, I think that's. So that is, and Assemblyman, this is why I'm saying you brought good points, because we've learned through the last couple of months also, why is it that, we know there's an issue with the formula, but it's deeper than that. And I know members are going to ask this question. It is about some of the budgets, and it is about warning or what's happening. Or what did they do or not do that has put them into some of these situations. Look, what I love about this committee is that at the end of the day, we have our differences, but it's how we move forward. That is the one thing I always say. We are the best of the best here. So, Assemblyman Spearman, if you can go next.